We'll start off with using touchable without feedback because we'll be providing our own effects. We'll provide our button view, so we'll just say view, and that'll get rid of our air. And then we'll also provide a on press in, and this will allow us to then trigger an animation in the future when the user presses in. So say on press in is equal to this dot handle air horn. So whenever this is pressed, our air horn sound will play. Now, because our container is centering everything, we'll need to provide a strict width and height in this case. So let's create a button class here and say height of 80 and a width of 180. And we can then take that and say style equals styles.button. Now, when creating this 3D button effect, we'll need a platform for the animated button to go into. So we will create another view and give it a style of styles.outer. And this outer class will say flex1, so it takes up all the available space that we have provided here. And then we'll give it a padding of 10, and we'll round the border, so border radius, and we'll just say 14. And then finally, we'll give it a background color. And in our case, we'll just give it a background color of RGBA 0.65, so it'll be a slightly dark gray. And now comes the creation of the actual button. So the first thing we'll need to do is create what will be effectively the fake height of the button. That'll give the 3D effect. So we'll just call this class height. We'll give it a border radius of 16, and we will give it a background color of RGBA, 255 in the red slot, 0 in the others, and 0.5 opacity. So now if we render that view inside of our outer, which we'll eventually need to animate this, so we'll give it an animated dot view and apply our style. And now we can't see anything just yet because there's no content to give that particular thing any height. So we'll provide some on the inside, and this will be the inner piece of the button that sits right on top and actually is what the button looks like. So we'll give it another animated dot view, and then we'll provide some text. So we'll just say text Airhorn, and this will then be our inner style. So we'll say style equals styles.inner, and we'll go build that. So you can see here now that we are actually getting some content, some layout that our height piece is now showing. We'll create our inner style. So we will give it a background color of just red. And we will align our text into the center both ways. So align items center and justify content center. Now you can see what happened here. The red is now covering our darker red, and it's also not taking up all the available height. So in order to make it take up all the available height, we'll just give it a height of 100%. Then finally, we will give our text a little styling. So we'll just create a class called white and create a white text with a font weight of bold. And then we will give it a slightly larger font size of 20. And we can go ahead and apply that here. So style equals styles.white. And now we have our text slightly bigger. Now this doesn't look 3D yet, and that is because we need to apply some offsets and some padding to create that effect. So to do this, because we're going to animate it, we'll create an animated value. So we'll go ahead and set one up on state. We'll just call it animation and create a new animated.value that starts at 0. We'll focus on the height piece first because that will give it its 3D vibes. So we're going to base everything off of an interpolation. So we'll say const height style. And we need to affect the margin top. So say margin top this.state.animation.interpolate. And for our input range, will be a simple 0 to 1 scale. And we will output At its base level, we'll say -15 to move the button up 15. And then at 1, when the button is pressed, we will have 0 offset. The second thing we need to do is apply some padding. Because this height has the inner inside of it, we won't be able to see the dark red to create the height unless we add some padding. So we'll say padding bottom and do a similar thing, this.state.animation.interpolate with an input range of 0 to 1 and an output range of 15 to start to give it that height, and then 0 when the button is pressed to make it look depressed. Finally, we can apply our height style to our height. And we can do that with the array syntax for our style. And you can see here we now have our border radius on our left, but no border radius on our top. However, we want to animate that as well, so we'll create a new inner style. So for our inner style, we'll say const inner style. And we'll say this is an object, and we'll animate our border radius. Say this.state.animation.interpolate. Once again, input range 0 to 1. And when we are not pressed, we will give it a border radius of 12. However, when we are pressed, we want to match the border radius that we have supplied to our height, so border radius of 16. And now we can take that inner style and apply it. And now we have a realistic looking 3D button. Now, in order to animate this button, we need to toggle it to animate it to 1, our animation. So we do that inside of our handle Airhorn function. So with that, we can say animated.timing, pass in our animation, this.state.animation. We'll give it a to value of 1 and a duration of 100, and then we'll call start. So now when we press this, we can see that it depresses and animates downwards. However, it doesn't come back up just yet. Touchable without feedback also has a on press out. So we can supply an on press out, and then we'll just create another function called this.buttonup. So this.button, we'll call it on button up, and create an on button up here. Now for this to operate and for the on press out to get triggered, we need to have an on press in instead of just an on press. So now within our on press out call to on button up, we can say animated.timing, this.state.animation, to value of 0, and we'll do a little quicker duration this time of 50 milliseconds, and then we'll call start. And so now when we press our button, it'll stay down, and then as soon as we release, it animates back up. And all of this is caused by, or created by, basically moving this outer section up with a negative margin and adding enough space for the darker red color to show through and create a shadow effect. And then when we press it, the padding will disappear, and this border radius will then be exactly the same as the underlying height container. And that way everything matches up, and the red top piece is just covering the darker red underneath.